Sex is supposed to be something that brings us closer to one another, right? But have you ever felt the urge to just disappear right after sex? I don't mean physically, you're still there, but something within you just kind of closes down and you try to stay connected to yourself or to your partner, but instead you just go quiet. You feel that need to sort of to move or to do something or get some space between you and what just happened. You don't entirely know why. It's like you know that you want the intimacy and perhaps you even initiated it. But once it's over and all that connection has happened, something inside you just needs to get the F out. And it's not that you don't care. And it's not that it didn't mean anything, but instead there's something about being open, being seen up close that registers in your body as a kind of alarm. Today, I want to talk about that. It's called avoidant attachment. We're going to talk about what it is, why it happens, and what it actually looks like when it shows up during sex. Hi, I'm Cyndi Darnell, sex and relationship therapist, and I work with all kinds of people in all kinds of relationships all over the world. On this channel, I talk about sex, desire, intimacy, and the skills we need for rich and meaningful relationships, honestly, practically, and without shame. If you're new here, welcome. And if you've been here a while, thank you so much for being part of this conversation. If anything I shared today resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. I have a lot more coming this year and I don't want you to miss any of it. So what is avoidant attachment and where does it come from? Before I describe what avoidant attachment typically looks like, I want to offer the same caveat in this video as all the others in this series because, of course, it applies here. Attachment theory is a framework. It's a useful lens. It's not a fixed hard science or a hard truth. So these patterns that we talk about in attachment aren't diagnoses and they're not life sentences. They're adaptations, intelligent, logical responses to the emotional environments all of us were raised in. If you recognize avoidant attachment patterns in yourself, that recognition is information. It's nothing to panic about and it's not a verdict. Avoidant attachment typically develops in early environments where emotional needs were consistently minimized, dismissed, or simply just unmet. Perhaps not with cruelty, often with the best intentions, actually. You'd often see this in families where independence was valued and neediness was implicitly or explicitly considered a source of discomfort. Caregivers who were physically present but emotionally unavailable, or environments where vulnerability was treated as a weakness. The child in that environment learns to adapt by deactivating the attachment system. So that means they're turning down the volume on the need for closeness. Where anxious attachment means hyperactivating that system, amplifying the signal, avoidant attachment means learning to suppress attachment needs so effectively that they become almost invisible to the person that's carrying them. Now, this is an intelligent strategy. If reaching for closeness consistently results in disconnection or dismissal, then the most logical move is to stop reaching, right? To need less, to become very good at just managing alone. So in this context, the adapted self in an avoidant pattern never loses the need for connection, though. Instead, it learns to hide its needs from view. Initially, that need is hidden from others. We want to appear competent, safe, assured. But over time, the desire to hide takes over, and we learn to hide from ourselves too. We might lose touch with what's happening within us, and we get tricked into thinking there's nothing much there for ourselves or for anyone else. Now, avoidant attachment in sex tends to show up in ways that can be kind of confusing to everyone involved. On the surface, avoidantly attached people can be perfectly willing, even actually really enthusiastic about sex. The physical dimension is often fine. Perhaps it's even more than fine. For many, it's the only place they give themselves permission to actually connect with their inner world, to feel connected to anything at all. But beyond these base level feelings of erotic abandon, It's the emotional dimension of sex that carries the difficulty. After sex, particularly sex that was emotionally significant, tender, or deeply connected, the avoidantly attached person often experiences what might look like a rebound. They pull back from the closeness. They experience a need to restore some of the internal distance for fear of being flooded or overwhelmed by themselves or their partner. So this might look like getting up and doing something immediately afterward, or going quiet, or changing the subject, or an internal sense of wanting the other person to leave, even if they're a long-term. It can also show up in sort of subtler ways, like finding fault with a partner right after a moment of closeness, becoming absorbed in a task, or making a joke when something tender arises. Now, these strategies are not random, but instead they're specific, often unconscious moves that the nervous system makes to reduce the felt intensity of intimacy. Thinking about a partner's flaws, mentally rehearsing the reasons the relationship probably won't work, focusing on anything other than the present moment of connection between you. The body does what it knows by keeping the temperature somewhere it can bear. Now, I want to say something that I think is genuinely underserved in the conversation about avoidant attachment. Almost everything that's written about avoidant attachment is written often by the people on the outside of it, the ones doing the reaching, doing the waiting, and wondering what they did wrong, which means that the person living it really gets to hear their own experience described back to them with any kind of accuracy or perhaps even kindness. So I'm going to try. Usually there is a longing for connection underneath it all, a genuine desire that gets complicated as closeness increases. It's as if something in the nervous system starts treating it like a problem to solve rather than a thing to enjoy. Not a threat to the physical safety, but something more subtle than that. More like a fear of being swallowed up, of losing a thread of yourself inside someone else's needs and feelings and expectation. And sadly, something that most avoidantly attached people find genuinely surprising when they first sit with it is that their infant need for closeness never went away. It just got buried so early and so thoroughly that it stopped feeling like a need at all, like a language they once knew but hadn't spoken in so long they'd stopped thinking of themselves as someone who spoke it. The retreat isn't inspired by indifference, but instead self-preservation. Understanding that doesn't excuse the hurt that it can cause, but it's essential if anything is going to shift. It also helps to understand that anxious and avoidant patterns aren't exactly opposites. They're actually two sides of the same coin. They both developed in response to unmet needs for connection. Both are trying to solve the same problem. They just arrived at opposite strategies for doing it. So I want to tell you about Marcus. He came to see me at the insistence of his partner, who had told him that she felt like she was always reaching for him and that he was always just out of reach. And Marcus was genuinely baffled. He loved his partner, he was faithful, reliable, and engaged. He showed up, and he just, as he put it, needed some space sometimes. So, what's wrong with that? Well, nothing. Except that what emerged over our work together was a picture that Marcus had never quite assembled before. He had grown up in a house where feelings were largely very private. His father was a man of action and not words. When Marcus was upset as a child, the message, unspoken but unmistakable, was handle it, don't make a fuss, get on with it. So his adapted self had become extraordinarily good at handling things and almost completely unaccustomed to the experience of being known. In his relationships, his sexual intimacy was the moment where he was most at risk of being known and being seen. His nervous system, faithfully running to the strategy it had always used, would send the signal, too much, too close, pull back. So the deactivating strategies would kick in almost automatically. He'd become mentally absent. He'd find something to do. He'd notice his partner's irritating habits right at the moment of greatest connection. His nervous system, quite literally, manufacturing reasons to create distance. What Marcus came to realize was that he hadn't been protecting himself from his partner. He'd been protecting himself from his own longing, from how much he actually wanted the connection that he kept retreating from. The walls he had built kept out the hurt, but they had also been keeping out the very thing that he most wanted, which is exactly what he had learnt to do as a child, to protect himself from the pain of not being tended to as he longed for all those years ago. So, a quick pause here. If you are finding this useful, a like really does help this content to reach more of the people who need it. And if you want to go further with any of this, head on over to my website, cyndidarnell.com. I have online courses there that go deep into understanding your body, your desire, and your relationships. And I also want to point you to the next video in this series around disorganized attachment and sex, which connects directly to what we're talking about today. I'll link it at the end and it'll be in the description. So back to avoidant attachment. If you recognize these patterns in yourself, the first thing I want to say is that you don't have to pull yourself apart to shift this. The intention isn't to become someone who needs a lot or who lives at a high emotional temperature. Instead, our focus is to expand the range of closeness we can tolerate without the deactivating strategies immediately kicking in. So this begins with noticing. The moment the impulse arises to pull back, go quiet, and get busy, just observe it. Where do you notice it in your body? What triggered it? What does the adapted self believe will happen if you stay? You don't have to act differently right away. Awareness alone begins to create a gap between the impulse and the response. And in that gap, over time, something new becomes possible. Therapies, particularly somatic approaches that work with the nervous system directly, can be a genuinely valuable approach here. Slow, consistent, safe experiences of closeness, how an avoidant nervous system gradually learns to update its understanding of what intimacy costs. The goal isn't closeness that overwhelms you. Instead, it's looking for closeness that doesn't require you to disappear to survive it. If you experience avoidant patterns, you've probably heard a lot about the impact on the people around you. And that's real and worth sitting with. But I also want to acknowledge something else. It takes genuine courage to look at this honestly, to recognize that what once felt like self-sufficiency was also protection. That the space you needed was also a way of staying safe from something that still, somewhere, feels frightening. Your adapted self learned something very early and has been incredibly loyal to it. That loyalty isn't a flaw, but a strategy that may have outgrown its usefulness. So the recognition, the quiet, private, uncomfortable truth as it is, that's where the change begins. The final episode in this series is about disorganized attachment, the most complex of the 4 patterns, and the one most often linked to early experiences where the source of safety and the source of fear were the same person. If you've ever found yourself wanting closeness and terrified of it at the same time, that one is an important watch. If you want to go deeper with any of this, again, I have 2 places to point you. My book, Sex When You Don't Feel Like It, The Truth About Mismatched Libido and Rediscovering Desire, is available now. The link is in the description below. And if you are ready to do the work, head to my website, cyndidarnell.com. I have online courses there that go deep into understanding your body, your relationships, and your desire, wherever you're starting from. If this has been useful, please like this video. It genuinely helps more people find it. And subscribe if you haven't already. I have a lot more videos like this coming this year. Please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and take care of your bodies. They're doing their best.